There was always a few kids that always liked to go dumpster diving because it's pretty much like a treasure hunt as you never know what you could find. Now, this happened to a few friends of mine in high school, and this was back in 2017 in the summer. Now, my friends, which I'll call them by the name Harrison and Jordan. Harrison and Jordan have been dumpster diving for years, and those two, they were pretty good buddies since kindergarten, and they always liked to find anything they could use as they can reuse things again. For an example, they went to a couple of stores, and of course, they have done a lot of dumpster diving. Now, however, that was when one night really took a turn for the worst. It was summer night in 2017, and both Harrison was working at the local pizza joint. His job was mainly to cook the pizzas, make sure they're all ready for the customer who requested it. That was the part of his night shift. He had gotten this pizza job since he was 16 in 2015, so he had been doing it for at least 2 years. Sure, whenever they were closing up shop for the night, he eventually comes across some really interesting things in dumpsters. Now, it's kind of risky at night since there are police patrolling the area, making sure no homeless people were looking into any of the dumpsters. Harrison was alone since his friend, Jordan, was on vacation during the time and was taking a week off from work. They both had worked at the same pizza joint for a few years now, so Harrison decided to do a little bit of dumpster diving while he was on his break. Of course, it was around 11 o'clock at night, so he made sure that there was no policemen walking around before checking the dumpster. He opened up the hood as it had filled with some bags. There was garbage here and there, so he looked to see if anybody could have thrown out anything useful for his house. Whenever it be scrapped metal, broken stuff, or whatever it may seem to be, he always tried to find a way to reuse something into something new. However, though, it was one day where he discovered a foul odor in the dumpster. At first, he thought that maybe it might have been the trash itself, but Harrison kept smelling it every time he goes to the dumpster to throw out a bag of garbage or to be having his break in the back. It wasn't until maybe the next day when he was clocking into work for a day shift, since it was only maybe a day ago. He didn't think much of it at night that who or what could have been making the smell. He thought that maybe it was just his imagination and was hallucinating due to work being very stressful on him. However, as he walked inside the pizza joint to sign up for work, he didn't have time to go to the back until it was break time. His break time was usually around 1 p.m., so it wasn't that bad since he got an hour of a break. He had his lunch and then he decided to go to the back for a cigarette. However, he smelled that foul odor again and decided to maybe look inside to see if there was actually something in the dumpster. Upon opening it, he saw that there was some sort of body bag inside. It was really strange, but that must have been where the smell was coming from. He ended up pulling the body out of the dumpster, thinking maybe someone might have done it as a prank, probably like one of those Halloween props just to scare people. However, he opened up the body and discovered that it was wrapped in garbage bag, and it was a body, what appeared to be a woman no older than 20. Honestly, he was really distraught and really shocked because he never thought, of all things to find in the dumpsters, to find a dead body in there. And she looked like she had been rotting there for a week or maybe a little longer. He ended up telling his work co-workers about what he had discovered, and they had called the cops. Of course, the cops came and did a search for the pizza place, and it had been closed down for a couple of days because of that certain crime scene. Now, I don't know why Harrison didn't tell the co-workers about this at night, but you would think that maybe he would get into trouble for something like that. He didn't get fired from his pizza joint, but they did say he should have told them right away the night before on his night shift about it. The police couldn't find out anything within a couple of days, assumed that maybe someone might have killed his girlfriend or someone who he had despised of. Not sure who the killer was, but the victim appeared to be really young, around 19 to 20 years old. Of course, the girl happens to be died of what appeared to be an overdose of drugs, and someone might have thought it'd be okay to dump her body in the dumpster. Out of all the things that Harrison has found, this was the most disturbing thing he's ever found while dumpster diving. Since then, he didn't do night shifts again since of his paranoia of finding stuff in the dumpsters. It was also why he had stopped dumpster diving for a while, because every time he thinks about that body that he found at the night before, but he didn't even think of it, but found it the day after, he honestly wasn't sure if, for whatever reason, that killer is still out there, but he had get paranoia every time he goes through dumpsters, thinking that he could find maybe another dead body there. He also never did night shifts anymore, because you never know what could happen during your night shift. So, this happened to a friend of mine named Alex, and he worked at McDonald's. So, to give it a bit of background information, this happened to him about maybe a month or two ago. To be honest, he honestly had no idea who or what had just could have happened, but honestly, this was definitely one McDonald's he had stumbled across back then, and he did come across some weird stuff. This McDonald's was hiring, so he needed the job, as he quit his job at Walmart, so because of reasons that I will not go into. So his mom decided to get him a job at McDonald's. It wasn't too bad, since he didn't mind working there, as he did get discounts for anything he ordered, so that was actually a good thing. However, as Alex was working one night at the night shift, it was dead quiet since it was just him and a few other employees. Most of them were working at the back, but you can understand what that meant. As Alex was doing his night shift, he was just minding the register when he didn't see anybody there, so he decided that he would go to the bathroom. But by the time he got back from the bathroom, he looked up to see that there was a woman. The woman looked like she was in her 30s, and she looked distressed, maybe if she had dementia. She looked really odd and just looked at the windows as if she were wary of something. She ended up looking over at people, and Alex couldn't really be sure as to why she was doing that. Maybe thinking she could have been maybe delirious or something, but there was no way to know for sure. She just kept staring through the McDonald's mirror. Of course, Alex decided to go up maybe see if she wanted anything from McDonald's. Once he went up there, he asked her if she did anything, but she didn't say anything. In fact, she had just been staying quiet for the entire time. Alex then asked her to leave if she wasn't coming to order, but she refused. She just stared at him, not doing anything, no facial expressions. She was just staring at him. That's when Alex ended up going to the police on the phone, but however, by the time the cops arrived, she was gone. Of course, he did give the best description of the woman, and they ended up looking all over town and even had a police car patrolling the McDonald's just in case if that woman ever were to return, but nothing ever became of it. Still to this day, every time Alex does night shifts, he even wonders to himself, why was that woman staring at him? What did she want? All those questions seem to be blowing in his mind as he thinks about it. He doesn't even know if she was still around or not, but she hadn't seen her since, so maybe it was just some sort of coincidence, Or maybe it was just one of the weird customers at McDonald's. Well, he still does night shifts today, but nothing like that has ever happened since. So this just happened a couple months ago from a friend of mine who used to go to school with me. Now, at the time of this story, we will call him by the name Ethan. Ethan was doing a security guard night shift, which of course he had been doing night shifts at this really nice place in Las Vegas for at least a few years now. He had moved to Vegas back in 2018, and the pay was a bit better, although not by much since his parents found better job opportunities there. So, as Ethan was doing his rounds at around one of the best security hotels at La Vegas, he ended up looking over to see that there was a security guard who needed a takeover because the other security guard had unfortunately quit his job. Ethan ended up taking that opportunity as it was more pay and he didn't have school, so this was a great opportunity. Ethan, who was in school, was just doing his normal rounds as a security guard when he ended up looking over to see that there was someone or something at the other end of the hallway. At first he thought it was maybe just a random person going down from the hall, but it was around 1 a.m., so most people at the hotel would have already been asleep by now. As Ethan looked around, he ended up could see there was a glimpse of what appeared to be a man, maybe about 6 foot tall. Now, Ethan was around 5'11", so he couldn't really take him on even if he wanted to. However, this man ended up bolting past him, and that's when Ethan got the security guard's backup for the radio. However, by the time the security guards got him, there seems to be some few gunshots and even some screams. Ethan went down to see if there was something going on, and of course he saw 3 security guards who had pinned down a man who appeared to be maybe in his 30s. The police were eventually called and they arrested him, and it turns out this man had been breaking into hotels since 2020, during when the global pandemic went around. So he had been arrested, and it was shown that he had mental disorders and he was mentally ill to the point where he ended up breaking into people's houses and stuff like that. It wasn't really clear as to why he was doing it, but Ethan had never had any encounter like that ever again as a security guard. It doesn't mean it will be the last encounter like this, but it's definitely something at night that he really gets nervous of to this day. Even as a security guard today, he's always making sure to check his surroundings because anything can jump out at any moment. So this happened back maybe around 5 or 6 years ago. This happened to a friend of mine, which of course we will call her by the name of Jessica. Now, Jessica was alone in her boyfriend's house, as her boyfriend and his family were going to be on vacation for about a week at the Dominican Republic. So Jessica had the all-week job is to watch over the house and watch over for their pets. Of course, her boyfriend had a guinea pig, a cat, a dog, 2 dogs, and even a parrot. So it was kind of a lot of work, but Jessica didn't mind it, as the parents said that they would pay her for e-transfer. So Jessica at the time was about 25 at the time, so she decided that she would spend a couple nights at her boyfriend's house. Her night shift was just to mainly watch all the computer security cameras, as his family had installed those just before leaving for vacation, in case if anyone were attempting to break into their house while they were away. The neighborhood that Jessica and her boyfriend lived in wasn't really the nicest, but nor was the safest, as there would be some sirens heard at least a few times a week. So that is what Jessica was doing. Throughout the entire night, she watched the security cameras and she would be looking after the pets. It was around maybe 2 a.m. when she woke up to hear what seemed to be a camera picking up something. She ended up looking over to see that there was a strange man. She hadn't seen this man before, and he looked like he was in his 40s. She couldn't really exactly tell if that was how old this man was, or maybe even younger. But he did look like he was dressed up as anyone to attempt a robbery. He had a ski mask on with only holes for his mouth and eyes, so she couldn't really tell what this guy was really up to. He was looking around the house, walking back and forth, and honestly, she was confused as to what this guy was doing. She had stayed on there and was considering even going 911 by calling the police, but she wasn't sure if this guy was lost or was just mentally really insane in his mind. She waited for a few minutes to see if he would do anything, but it wasn't until she saw another camera when the man was looking right at through the front door. However, since the blinds were shut, he couldn't see anybody or anything through the house. That's when she ended up dialing 911, and since she was in her boyfriend's room, which it thankfully had a lock, he managed to lock it tight and keep it closed. However, as Jessica was on the phone with the 911 operator, she ended up hearing this guy banging on the front door and attempting to break in, screaming insults and profanities. Honestly, Jessica thought that door was going to break down any moment, but just before he was considering on breaking down, the police eventually showed up. As soon as the cops showed up, they arrested him, and eventually that's when Jessica got her boyfriend's parents. Her boyfriend's parents, along with her boyfriend, were aware of the situation since the police had called them while they're on vacation. And they ended up saying that they would have a police guard at the house every night until they get back, since it would be only a couple more days until they would be home. That's what the police did. At night, one police officer would be out there in case if anyone tried to break in, but Jessica had not had any incidents like this since. She still wasn't sure today if this man wanted to break in for anything, but she always think about what could have happened, what could have really happened to her if she had not been at the cameras or called 911 any sooner. Chances were whoever it was could have broken in and probably stole anything or even hurt her, but there was no way to know for sure. She still isn't sure if this guy was arrested still or if he got released, but Jessica does not want to find out what the alternative outcome would be if she hadn't called 911.